This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
I'm the Greg.
And I am Dave Show.
We host the Greg and Dave Show on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out our show, The Greg and Dave Show, where we talk about strange, bizarre, and sometimes just downright quirky news stories that you may not have heard about.
A new show comes out every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And hey, thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
The latest headlines.
The Houston Astros, the defending World Series champions, got better adding Garrett Cole.
The insightful interviews.
Rick Saratella, NFL Draft Bible. With how much emphasis is put on the position, yet how many over the last couple of years we've had questions. Why do we put such an emphasis on drafting a quarterback number one overall?
The bottom line is there's not enough good quarterbacks to go around. And I think with the new CBA, it's really a low-risk gamble now. If you look at the playoff teams, the common denominator, good quarterback play.
The hottest takes.
I think the guy to blame is the one guy who hasn't left yet. I think Russell Westbrook is one of the bigger problems in Oklahoma City.
Can all be found on Press Row. Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network. Here's your host.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
Christian Heimall.
Welcome in, everybody, once again on Press Row, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network. Christian Heimall here with you. So happy to be along for the ride on this Thursday, June 21st, 2018, also known as Draft Day in the NBA. Got plenty to get to, a great lineup for you. Jared Greenberg, NBATV, is going to join us. He'll talk a little bit about some of the trade rumors we're hearing, how these GMs are starting to think as we get just a couple hours now away from the NBA draft beginning in New York in the Braclays Center. And then Reid, Forgrave, basketball writer for CBSSports.com, will join us as well as we're talking about all these players who could end up where, what they might be doing, and just why we're falling in love with certain players so much heading into the draft here today. Don't forget that you can subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends and family, all on the Spreaker.com, Stitcher.com, iHeartRadio, all the apps as well, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, wherever you find your apps, you can, and your podcasts, you can find us on Press Row. Of course, thephmedia.com as well is the best place to find us also. Check us out on Facebook, Press Row Podcast by Public House Media, as well as on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM, or email the show, PressRowPHM@gmail.com. Let's start off with a little bit of NBA news, and this is, I don't know how this affects the draft. I don't think it does at all, but the trade of Timothy Mozgov and a couple of second-round picks in the future for Dwight Howard between the Brooklyn Nets and the Charlotte Hornets, and really this is just more of a move for Charlotte to get underneath the salary cap, and for really for Brooklyn to kind of get a little bit of a better grasp on things. It's definitely going to be something exciting for those NBA folks, those fans in Brooklyn who get to host the draft tonight at Braclays Center. But it's kind of interesting here, the way that this went down for Brooklyn, the fact that they now have been able to clear enough salary cap with Timothy Mozgov, a deal that will expire after next season, and get Charlotte to take on that salary. The Nets now have enough where they have 2 max salary slots come next summer, which is pretty interesting here. So the Nets now become into that mix for whatever the free agent class is in 2019. So an exciting start to the offseason for the Brooklyn Nets, I'm sure. And we'll see the thoughts of Jared Greenberg in just a little bit to discuss all of that. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The other parts here, I mean, the NBA draft, you got some of the best college players in the country who are finally going to have a shot here. You're going to get a lot of people talking about wingspan. It's amazing. We've got a draft full of bigs here. I mean, as I'm looking at some of these mock drafts in the top 10, I'm looking at DeAndre Ayton. Let's see here. Looking at all of these mock drafts real quick, it's kind of funny. DeAndre Ayton, Jaren Jackson Jr., Mohamed Bamba, Marvin Bagley III, Michael Porter Jr., Wendell Carter Jr. Those 6 guys in the top 7 are all 6'7" and above. Even Luka Doncic is right there, 6'8". It's insane to think where he could potentially go. This kid who, unless you've seen highlights, YouTube videos of him, you haven't really seen much as an American. He's incredibly talented. He's got great court vision, can shoot the ball well, very talented scorer, very talented rebounder, and a high basketball IQ. So it's the draft of the bigs, and we're going to talk with Reid Forgrave of CBSSports.com about that and see just why so many people are falling in love with this. In an NBA where we are constantly talking about perimeter shooting, about guard play, Russell Westbrook gets all the headlines, James Harden, Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, even LeBron James, who, even though he's listed as a power forward, he's got point guard ability. And some of these guys do, some of these guys don't, but it'll be interesting to see how it all happens and who the number 1 pick will be tonight, where these teams go. But a lot of this also tonight focuses in on what 2 superstars are hoping to do and looking to do. And that's, of course, Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James. Their impact and the uncertainty surrounding them will have James more so than Kawhi Leonard, because the Cavaliers have that 8th pick, and the Spurs, if I have the 18th pick. So you won't expect much from them. I mean, maybe they trade up a little bit. Who knows? Maybe they package Kawhi Leonard with that pick, or get a bigger pick in return for Kawhi Leonard. But they met, Kawhi and Greg Popovich met on Tuesday, apparently, in San Diego. Leonard is not happy with the situation that he's currently in there in San Antonio. He wants out, doesn't like how things were handled in San Antonio with his injury. Wants to go to L.A., more so the Lakers than the Clippers, but the Spurs, there's no way the Spurs are going to gift wrap this, especially if they think that LeBron or Paul George or both could end up going to the Lakers as well. So there's no way that they're motivated, they have any reason to kind of gift wrap what would be a very impressive roster for the LA Lakers. There's no reason for them to do that. Why should they do that? I don't expect anything to happen with those big names. Of course, LeBron has until June 29th to decide if he's going to opt into his $35.6 million player option here for this year. But we'll see exactly how this all happens. I don't expect anything to happen from Kawhi Leonard. I don't think you're going to hear anything from LeBron James either. And I don't think that if you are listening or paying attention to anything that's happening, I don't think you expect any big news from them anyway. I don't think anything that happens tonight has anything to do with those two. I don't think anything that those two has to do with anything that could happen tonight. So it seems as though these are 2 separate entities, the draft and then these free agency talks / trade talks. You heard this week that Paul George might be accepting, and Oklahoma City's getting ready to offer a supermax deal to Paul George and give him all the money he could possibly get from his free agency status to try to lure him away and keep him in OKC as opposed to watching him go to the Lakers. But we'll see how all that happens. With Kawhi, it's just a weird situation. One of the best players in the world, and a guy who, by all accounts, pretty much gave up on his team this year because he didn't like the way that his injury was handled, didn't like what his teammates and what his coach said. It's interesting and it's disturbing, but it's how it is. This guy could get traded to the Lakers and be competing for a championship. But the Spurs, of course, need to get something in return. And so that's why I think if Kawhi does get traded, it'll be to the East. Even though Kawhi has said that he plans, once he apparently has had people telling other franchises that he plans on signing in LA when they become the free agent in 2019 next summer. But if LeBron and Paul George both go there, who knows if they have enough under the salary cap to be able to offer him that kind of money. So it's a big thing that's up in the air. It's a lot of question marks. I don't know what happens. And it's just strange to think that one of the best players in the NBA, a guy who, by some accounts, quit on his team, could be gift wrapped into a championship opportunity because he does not want to play where he currently is right now. With LeBron James, and I'll get into this towards the end of the show as well, I don't know if Cleveland can draft anybody that keeps him there. I still think he stays. I really do. I've become more accepting to the fact that LeBron would go to LA if he leaves, even though I don't think that doesn't make sense to me. Because in order for him to get the max deal, the most that he wants, it has to be a sign and trade, and you deplete the roster that you're going to, and you would lose in the semifinals of the Western Conference or the finals of the Western Conference. You wouldn't even get to the NBA Finals. So from that standpoint, it doesn't really make sense to go to LA. I don't think going to Philadelphia is any better, just because, again, for the most money, you'd have to do a sign and trade, and I don't think the Sixers would give up what it would take to get LeBron from Cleveland. That being said, there are guys in this draft that are impressive that I think are worth pairing with LeBron. The question is, will they fall to number 8? Now, a lot of people have Colin Sexton, Trae Young. I've seen a couple other mock drafts where it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander heading to LeBron. But a point guard for LeBron doesn't help because he's a ball-dominant player. What LeBron needs is a great shooter and or a dominating presence down low. That's why I think Trae Young is a great fit. He could run the point guard if really needed, but he can also shoot the lights out. You imagine if Cleveland traded up and tried to get Luka Doncic, who by all accounts for a lot of people, he's got the best potential. He may be the best player in this draft. But there are other places I think the Cavaliers should go. I think they should go big man. This is the draft of the big man. And I think it would be wise of them to maybe get someone to replace Tristan Thompson. Be able to be a complementary piece to Kevin Love or Tristan Thompson. A guy like Wendell Carter, I think, would be tremendous in that system. But who knows? There's a lot still to be figured out. And a lot to be discussed. And we're going to discuss it with Reid Forgrave of CBSSports.com in just a little bit. But when we return, Jared Greenberg, NBATV, friend of the show, he'll join us once again, talk about not only the Dwight Howard deal, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, but all of this as the NBA draft is tonight in Brooklyn. And you're on Press Row.
Want to be part of the show? Go to Facebook and search Press Row Podcast Public House Media. Or find us on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. You can also email the program, PressRowPHM@gmail.com.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay.
And this is Elizabeth,
co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
How's it going, everybody? This is Keith.
And Katie, host of Coffee with Keith and Katie, here on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. When you're done here, I hope you'll check out our show, Coffee with Keith and Katie,
where we talk about our lives and relationship over a cup of coffee.
A new episode airs on Facebook Live every Monday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Coffee with Keith and Katie.
Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Press Row with Christian Heimall, a Public House Media podcast.
Now rocking basketball, number 1, first flow. Basketball is my favorite sport. I like the way the dribble.
Welcome back on Press Row, everybody. Christian Heimall here on this Thursday, June 21st, 2018. The NBA draft tonight. Many players hoping to hear their names called and be a part of potentially whether it is a championship caliber team already or help be that missing piece to help build a championship team. There's a lot that goes into this, and it's not just the scouting reports, it's not just the combine, but the GMs as well and possible trades and what certain GMs are thinking in terms of how they fill certain holes on their roster. To help us break it all down, Jared Greenberg, NBA TV. He will be in Brooklyn speaking with the players right after they get their name called and to get that photo op with Adam Silver. Jared, as always, we appreciate the time.
You got it, man.
And let's start real quick with the news on Wednesday before we get into the actual draft stuff. A trade already with the Brooklyn Nets and the Hornets as Dwight Howard being shipped up to New York. What's been the reaction around the league with regards to that trade, and what does it mean for both these teams?
Well, I think primarily the way I understand it is that it's helping Charlotte get under the salary cap, where they don't have to worry about a luxury tax. And it allows them to take out a guy like Timothy Mozgov, who has an expiring deal. And quite frankly, it's a strange pairing because Mitch Kupchak, who's now the GM, never signed Timothy Mozgov to this deal that's finally going to expire back a couple of years ago with the Lakers.
So what does this do? I mean, it's strange to think that Dwight Howard, who at one time was one of the premier big men in the league, is now on, his 6th, 7th team in his career. What does this mean for Dwight Howard's career?
Well, I mean, it's crazy. 4 teams in 4 years. And then, quite frankly, say what you want about Dwight Howard. If you just look in a vacuum at his numbers last year and the production he had, he actually played really, really well for Charlotte. And I think if you're Charlotte, you're saying, well, look at the numbers he put up, and we didn't make the playoffs. So to be able to get off his contract, I think is important for them.
Speaking with Jared Greenberg, NBA TV, their draft special, you can catch it there live in Brooklyn. As we get set for this draft on Thursday night, what's kind of the biggest question mark going in surrounding how certain NBA teams are looking at these players?
Well, I think the biggest question, is Michael Porter Jr., who, a year ago was probably projected as the number 1 pick. And he's had a severe back injury, and people weighing his talent and his potential versus what the doctors are reading in terms of his medical reports. Because if you think that he's going to be okay and his back problem is not an issue, then you think about taking him at number 1 or number 2. But clearly I think there are teams that are going to have some hesitation because they don't believe that he's completely healthy or that he won't have these back issues either this upcoming season or for years to come.
I thought it was kind of interesting to see earlier this week the NBA sent out a memo, even though they didn't explicitly say one and done, but mentioning that draft eligibility rules could change in a couple of years. Do you think that has any effect with potential trades in terms of giving away future picks?
It's interesting. I think there's going to be, for a lot of reasons, there's going to be a lot of movement tonight. And maybe that is part of it. Maybe that is going to be one of the factors. But I think that, league in doing so, and that's one of the things I'm going to get the chance to speak with actually Commissioner Silver before our draft coverage tonight. That'll be, one of the topics we go over is, what was the point of that memo? What were you trying to prepare teams for, and how do you expect to maybe see that, as you said, throughout the draft play itself out?
There'll be a lot of questions with regards to free agency. Of course, Kawhi Leonard demanding a trade, apparently sitting down with Popovich on Tuesday, LeBron James and his decisions, Paul George and all of that stuff. But before we get to all of those, who should be the number 1 pick in this draft?
Well, I think for a lot of reasons, DeAndre Ayton makes sense for Phoenix. I think that pairing with him and Devin Booker is kind of the cornerstones as 2 guys that have the ability to be a face of a franchise. I think that's a good start for a Phoenix team that has really struggled the last several years. And quite frankly, even though they've had a lot of draft picks, many of them haven't panned out, or at least, and that's not even to, as a shot or a knock. It takes a lot of NBA players several years to kind of develop and come into their own and become, dominant players in this league.
Why is it that it seems like this year, with the way the NBA is in terms of playing on the perimeter and those outside shooting, why is it that it seems to be that we're falling in love with these big guys, whether it be Ayton, you look at Mo Bamba in Texas, a couple of other guys like Wendell Carter, Marvin Bagley. What is it with these bigs that are really starting to really kind of catch the eye of some of these GMs, even though this is a game that has been primarily dominated by perimeter shooters and guards?
Well, I think, a lot of these guys, and I'm sure not all of them are going to pan out, but a lot of these guys have the traits and qualities of play like many of the generational bigs that we have now that are transcending the game. Sure, we think of Steph Curry, setting the 3-point mark, a couple of years in a row. The Houston Rockets, the way they shoot threes, but also look around the league. Look at the type of big men who are so dominant. Look at from Anthony Davis to Karl Anthony Towns. So many of these guys now can play out in the perimeter, and it's not so much the question of whether they can offensively play out the perimeter. It's can you go and guard the perimeter and not be a detriment to your team when you're out there on defense. So I think a lot of these guys, like a Mo Bamba, who's being compared so much to Rudy Gobert, really he takes that as, I don't want to say an insult, but almost like, listen, Rudy Gobert is great defensively, but come see what I can do offensively. I can go shoot that three. I can go give my team the opportunity to space the floor by not having me clog the paint. And yeah, if you do want to give me the ball in the paint, I do know what to do with it. I'm really competent that way. So I think some of these bigs that you mentioned are just fitting the mold of what GMs want to see in their guys, that they're lengthy, they're athletic, they play both sides of the ball, and they quite frankly should have an impact on winning on a nightly basis.
Speaking with Jared Greenberg, NBA TV here on Press Row. You can catch their draft coverage on NBA TV. Jared will be there talking with the most recent members of the NBA family. What is it about the aura of Luka Doncic that has him, for a lot of people, in the top 3 picks of this draft?
I think it's the unknown factor for us fans. And I think we kind of go two ways when we don't know about something. In life, generally, it's two ends of the spectrum. It's, oh my goodness, I don't know anything about it. It can't be that good. Or the other end of the spectrum is, I don't know about it, but I'm hearing really good things, and he's going to be great. You know, I think we forget about the fact that GMs and scouts have been in Europe for years, literally years, watching and studying and getting to know him on and off the court, getting to know his family. And I think that they're going to be made prepared, educated decisions that are made on him. I think, quite frankly, you know, people just aren't sure yet, just like any of these players. I mean, he's 19 years old, even though he's the youngest EuroLeague MVP ever. You still don't know, does that translate to the NBA? Just like we've seen, you know, plenty of guys put up big-time numbers in college basketball and not have that translate to the NBA. I think it's as much of a risk for Doncic as it is anybody else who's being drafted.
Who's the biggest steal in this draft class? And I mean that in terms of either the guy that, you know, is sitting there at 20 or 18 that you kind of expected to be and has the best upside, or the guy who maybe slips out of the top 10 and someone's just sitting there going, oh my gosh, how did this guy fall to us?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm prepared to say, you know, the one single guy, like who's the Donovan Mitchell, who's the guy that gets drafted 13th, where you look in a year later and say maybe he could have been the number 1 pick. But you know, I'll tell you a guy that I spoke to on Wednesday who I really, really liked was Dante DiVincenzo from Villanova. And we all know about the monster national championship game he had, winning most outstanding player, helping Villanova win a championship. But I just think, you know, at 6'5", who set a record at the combine for his standing leap. He's so athletic. He has the ability to shoot. He's got good size. He's got a frame that's, you feel like he can put more muscle on and get a little bigger. And he just seems like a self-aware, good kid who's willing to work hard and is prepared to do so. I'm not saying that he's going to go out and win Rookie of the Year, but I think where he may fall in the draft may be to a team that is just looking for a piece, isn't looking to rebuild, and he could be a guy who we see making the impact in the NBA level pretty quickly.
I can't believe I'm going to ask this question, but more likely to have 3 first-round draft picks on Thursday night, Duke or Villanova?
It's crazy, right? I mean, Villanova could have 4.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about it is that, like, with Duke, you know, they kind of saw this coming. With Villanova, before the year, like, they didn't think Dante DiVincenzo would be even considering the NBA, let alone be a guy who could be picked, you know, in the first round. So I think it's remarkable. It's crazy.
So as we sit here, obviously the draft has a lot of impact, or could have a lot of impact, on some of these free agent deals, and most notably, of course, is LeBron James. Is there a guy that the Cleveland Cavaliers can draft at number 8 that maybe keeps LeBron, or are they kind of just sitting there going, we don't know what LeBron's going to do, let's draft just in case he's not here?
Yeah, I have a hard time just looking at LeBron's history thinking that anybody that they could draft is somebody that he views as a reason to stay or to leave. I think it's completely separate and independent of the draft. I do think, though, that we have to think about, and it's going to be on everybody's mind, is who the Cavs draft. Is that person able, like Andrew Wiggins was a few years ago, to be flipped for a proven commodity like a Kevin Love? I think for me that would be the type of conversation. If LeBron comes back to Cleveland, have the Cavs selected someone that they could, you know, flip into someone that again helps them, continues making them a championship contender year in and year out.
Is there that guy, though? I mean, is it like a Trae Young, a point guard who can shoot the ball? Is it a Miles Bridges who can do all of it? Is it worth trading up to try and go get Luka Doncic?
Again, I don't believe that if LeBron comes back, this player is on their roster, right? So I believe that they use this player as a leverage play to get somebody else by way of a trade. So if they end up keeping this player, I believe whoever they pick at 8, or if they do trade up or trade back, then it's a situation where LeBron's probably not there.
Speaking with Jared Greenberg, NBATV here on Press Row. The other big name that is in the discussion, at least about trades coming up this week leading into the draft, was Kawhi Leonard. He did meet with Greg Popovich on Tuesday, according to sources. What are you hearing about that meeting and about Kawhi's future in San Antonio?
Everything you're hearing is that Kawhi is not a happy person. He doesn't like the way that things went down this year. He doesn't like the fact that Tony Parker came out publicly and said something that just wasn't factually correct, that Tony Parker's injury was worse than Kawhi's and Tony was back playing. He didn't like that Greg Popovich referred to Kawhi's family as his group. I think that the Spurs tried to smoke Kawhi Leonard out, tried to get him back onto the court, and it backfired on them because they've never had somebody, in essence, rebel this way. They've never had somebody who's wanted an outside, independent, third-party doctor making a decision, which is perfectly legal and happens all the time in the NBA. So a lot of things that the Spurs did, which is not viewed very fondly by Kawhi and his family. And, here's the thing. If the Spurs ultimately offer on July 1st a $219 million contract to Kawhi Leonard, I think we're going to see truly how angry he was, because if he turns that down, then that means that this is irreparable and they're going to have to trade him. But ultimately, he may say, you know what, I can't turn down $219 million.
Last thing I'm going to ask you here before I let you go, biggest surprise out of tonight's draft will be a trade, a player taken too early, player falling too far. What's the biggest shocker that we should be looking out for?
I just think there's going to be massive amounts of trades for so many reasons. I think that there's so much talent in the top 10 of this draft, and I don't know that outside the top 10 there's going to be that talent. That teams are so desperate to get into the top 10. What are they willing to do? Who are they willing to part ways with? What future assets are they willing to give away? And I think it sets the stage for what's going to be a crazy summer. Maybe the craziest in NBA history, which is remarkable because we're coming off a summer that, who saw Chris Paul being traded or Paul George being traded and Jimmy Butler being traded and all of these different moves. I think this summer can even top that. It's going to start on draft night.
He's Jared Greenberg. He'll be in Brooklyn tonight, NBA TV. You can catch him there as all the draft coverage begins at the Braclays Center, 7 o'clock Eastern. Jared, we appreciate the time. Thanks a lot.
You got it, Christian. Thanks, man.
Jared Greenberg, NBA TV there. And look, I mean, I don't understand why all these big guys, it's my biggest question. I don't understand why all these big guys are so there. I love them. They're ones that I think should be. I think Wendell Carter, I think Marvin Bagley, Jaren Jackson, those guys should be all top 5 picks. I'm not sold on DeAndre Ayton. I'm certainly not sold on Michael Porter Jr. because of the injuries, but there's so much that's going to happen. And how crazy is it to think that Villanova could have 4 players drafted in the first round? Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Omari Spellman, and Dante DiVincenzo. That's insane to think of. Is it actually possible? Where do all these guys rank in terms of how scouts are looking at it, how NBA GMs and college basketball aficionados are looking at it? Reid Forgrave of CBS Sports is going to join us here right after the break. We'll talk with him about his big board and who he has going number 2 overall to the Sacramento Kings. It's a big guy from a big state. It's all coming up here. You're on Press Row, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Listen to every episode and get the latest shows sent right to you. Subscribe to Press Row on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, and Stitcher.com. Or visit us online at www.thephmedia.com.
Hi, this is Baxter Colburn, host of the Verse of the Day podcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Verse of the Day, where we take a look at real-world experiences and applications to one Bible verse every Monday through Friday as we get an idea of what it looks like to be a little bit better of a Christian and how we can make this world a better place, one verse at a time. I hope you'll join me every single Monday through Friday right here on Public House Media. And I hope you'll subscribe by going to Apple Podcasts or wherever you find good podcasts as well. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the following broadcast here on Public House Media.
Tiana Vanderhei here, host of the Refined Redhead podcast on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast. Once you're done with this episode, you should definitely come check out my show, the Refined Redhead podcast, where we talk to real people about relevant information in hopes of inspiring you to chase after whatever dreams you've set out to accomplish, persevering through whatever obstacles are in your way. A new show comes out bi-weekly every Tuesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of the Refined Redhead podcast. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Press Row with Christian Heimall, a Public House Media podcast.
2018 NBA Draft coming up tonight. Always fun talking with Jared Greenberg of NBATV, and another guy who knows quite a lot about what's going to happen tonight in the Braclays Center. CBSSports.com basketball writer, covers the NBA Draft, the NBA, as well as college basketball. Reid Forgrave joining us here on the program. Reid, thanks a lot for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Christmas in June, right? That's for NBA fans. We get to open our presents, and we'll see how long we get to play with them, because some of them can get old pretty quickly.
Well, it's kind of interesting that the NBA with last year. I talked about this last year on the show. I was amazed at how much coverage of the summer league there was, mainly, of course, because of Lonzo Ball and a couple of others. But when you look at the fact that the draft is literally 10 days after the NBA finals are over, the NBA has become a year-round sport.
I mean, frankly, if it had been, and this is what I was dreading, if the finals had gone to Game 7, it would have been 3 or 4 days after the finals were over. So I was glad to have the extra week at home. It was kind of like found time. Most reporters kind of root for sweeps come playoff time. But yeah, it is a year-round sport, and I feel like the NBA has the most exciting off season in my view, because there's so much drama. Like, I love NBA soap opera more than anything about this league. The rumors, the what's true, the reading of the tea leaves, the personal stats, the dissing teammates on rap tracks like Lonzo Ball did Kyle Kuzma the other day. I mean, this stuff it's fun, and I think it is. I mean, Adam Silver knows how important it is to the league's popularity to be more than just 80-some games plus playoffs. You got to be a talking point. You got to be a reality show, and I think the off season is just so often just an absolutely incredible reality show.
The league was made for that social media binge TV era that we are currently in, I guess, from a cultural standpoint. Let's get to the actual draft picks tonight. You have a guy all the way up at number 2 that a lot of folks, I mean, he's a top 10 talent most definitely, but I'm not seeing many other people having Mo Bamba as high as you. What do you love about the kid from Texas?
Yeah, if I could flip it, I'd probably put Doncic at number 2 or even number 1 and have Bamba down at number 3. But I'm about as high on Mo Bamba as just about anybody can, because I see a guy that has, I believe, the highest ceiling in this draft. The questions about him are twofold. Can he add muscle? Can he add weight? I mean, he's 7'1", and what is he, 225 pounds, but he's real thin. And if he can add 25 pounds of muscle to that frame, not cut up like a DeAndre Ayton, but just become more of a force down low, I think the sky can be the limit for him. And the second part of that question is, does he want the sky to be the limit? Does he have the desire not just to be an NBA player or not just to be a decent NBA player, but to be a great NBA player? He is great. He is elite on defense. Was one of the best shot blockers in college basketball as a freshman. He's, as you know, incredibly long, like the longest wingspan in the NBA. Also has just wonderful shot blocking and shot altering instincts. The question about him, though, is what can he be in the offensive end? The comparison is Rudy Gobert on defense, but having seen him
at University of Texas practices, I see a guy who's a lot more than that, who's a lot more than the guy that we saw in games. I watched him, nail a whole bunch of threes. I watched him hit 15 free throws in a row. You see him, not really taking the ball up in transition, but with an ability to put the ball on the floor, an ability to pass out of double teams, a really high IQ, both in a basketball sense and just in a human being sense. So I'm high on the guy because I think he is mature. I think he has great people around him. And I think that, the potential, I don't think anyone denies, even the people who think he could end up being a bust, no one would deny that the potential is sky high.
Seems like you feel, as you said, he's got the highest potential, but who's the best player in this draft?
It's probably Doncic, to be honest. I think Doncic will come in and be maybe not a star immediately, but a guy who can help a team win starting on day one. I mean, the guy won EuroLeague and ACB, the Spanish League, MVP this past season. He had a dream season, and he was playing against grown men. I mean, he was 18, turned 19 in the middle of the season, and to be able to do that in the second best league in the world, it's really, really impressive. He can kind of do it all, a perfect fit for today's NBA, really versatile, 6'8", but can bring the ball up the floor, can play some point guard, sort of a point forward type of guy, and he can really shoot it. He has he'll take some wild shots from time to time, and there is a little bit of wild stallion that needs a little bit harnessed with him, but man, he's such a smart player, and I don't think you can overvalue the basketball IQ aspect of things in today's NBA. Like, we talk so much about athleticism, and is Luka Doncic an elite athlete? No, but does Luka Doncic maybe have the best basketball mind in this entire draft? Absolutely.
You just watch that fall-away three at the shot clock buzzer in the ACB finals, and you're just sitting there going, how is this kid doing that? But, I mean, as we fall in love with the idea of potential. For you, Mo Bamba, for many others, it's Luka Doncic. Michael Porter Jr., who played 53 minutes this whole past year. People are in love with him.
Don't remind me of that. I'm a University of Missouri grad. Don't remind me how many minutes he played.
What is it about the unknown, the potential that we fall in love with, as opposed to taking a guy who maybe checks all the boxes, does absolutely everything, like potentially a Marvin Bagley, or for me, a Miles Bridges, those type of players that we've seen more from them? What is it about this potential, this unknown factor that we love so much when it comes draft time?
Look, I think there can be a good part of that way of thinking and a negative part to that way of thinking. I mean, the negative is obvious. You got general managers, pundits, coaches who look at a guy, and I mean, a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr. doesn't have the most incredible resume. Played 21, 22 minutes per game last year for a talented, maybe too talented Michigan State team. But he checks all those athletic boxes of what you want, and you can say, hey, this guy is our blank canvas. We can shape him into the perfect basketball player. There can be a little bit of hubris involved there, where you assume that you can change someone. And it's the old relationship mantra. People don't change. People are who they are. You can shape them this way or that, but you can't change someone's center. So I think that's where it becomes a little bit flawed. But where it's a smart way of thinking is you want to project. You want, especially in the lottery, high in that lottery, you want a home run swing. And sometimes when you take a home run swing, you miss. But look, Jalen Brunson is sort of the opposite of these guys that we're talking about. The Villanova point guard, he is so reliable, so dependable. He's going to be an NBA player, 10, 15 years. He's going to be a winning player. He's going to be a backup point guard, maybe can do some starting point guard if he's on a talented team. And you know what you're getting with him. But Jalen Brunson's never going to be a star. He's never going to be, I don't think, an all-star or an MVP level player. Whereas Michael Porter Jr., maybe he flames out. Maybe the injuries destroy him. Maybe Mo Bamba doesn't reach this ceiling that we think he has. But they have a chance at doing it. And superstars, I think, are more important in the NBA than any other sports league. Part of it just being there's only 5 guys on the floor at one time. So a superstar has an outsized impact. Speaking with Reid Forgrave, CBSSports.com basketball writer.
Mo Bamba, Jaren Jackson Jr., Wendell Carter, Marvin Bagley, Michael Porter, DeAndre Ayton, all guys 6'7", 6'6", and above. The NBA is decidedly a perimeter game right now, dominated by, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, obviously. What is it about this class of bigs that has people so excited in the NBA?
It's interesting because it is the draft of the big man, and yet just because you're a big man doesn't mean you can't play small ball. And I think that's what makes most, if not all, of these guys special for today's NBA. Most of them, if not all of them, have some sort of unicorn potential in them. I mean, Ayton's potential as a unicorn, I think, is obvious. He's an athletic freak. He just looks like a Greek god when he steps on the basketball court. But he's just an incredible scorer, an incredible rebounder. There are questions on the defensive end, but you can see how this guy can be something really, really special. He's a 7-footer who doesn't play like a traditional 7-footer. Same with Marvin Bagley. I mean, he's more of a power forward, but he's incredible in transition. A completely ridiculous athlete. I see him as, and this sounds like damning with faint praise, but I swear it's not, like Andrew Wiggins plus 3 inches plus a whole lot of motor. That's ultimately what Andrew Wiggins is missing, is he doesn't have the motor. Marvin Bagley has one of the most impressive motors that I've ever seen. Jaren Jackson Jr., you look at him and you're like, prototypical big for today's NBA. Mo Bamba, I think there's a little bit more, at least on the offensive side, project attached to him. But when I've talked to him, Mo, about this, he believes that's the goal for him, to be that unicorn type player. He idolizes and really looks as a role model, Joel Embiid, and those two talked back in the winter. And I talked to Embiid about this, and he's like, I told him the NBA is going to be so much easier for him offensively than college was because of the spacing question. So even though these guys are big guys, I don't think that means they necessarily are traditional big men in the way that we think of them. I think they will, each of them in their own different way, fit in really well into today's NBA.
Seems as though the hot name going up the draft board over the last couple of days, and really since the Combine, has been Dante DiVincenzo out of Villanova. How much is he impressing, and where can he really fit in the NBA?
I really wanted Dante DiVincenzo to be considered like an early second-round pick so I could tell people a year from now, see, I told you he was going to be awesome in the NBA, but everyone kind of caught on to the secret a little bit early. I mean, the dude is, you look at him and you're like, you think redheaded kid who can shoot the three for a program like Villanova that you don't think of like a Duke or Kentucky or Kansas that gets the supreme athletes. And you put that type of guy into a box. Dante DiVincenzo does not belong in that box that I just described. He won the Combine as far as vertical jump, 42-inch vertical. He can really, really shoot it. Shot 40% from three. Plays so hard. I don't think he's like an elite defender, but he uses those athletic gifts and he tries really hard, and he's a bright basketball player. So to me, I don't see much of a weakness in his game, and it wouldn't surprise me if, frankly, even if he lands in the right place where he can get some solid minutes, a year from now, we could look at him and be like, how in the world did this guy go late teens, early 20s? How did he not go 11, 12, 13 in this draft? I think he's going to be one of the guys that outperforms that draft position.
Conversely speaking, it seems as though Trae Young is a guy that some people are a little down on because of height or whatever, but he seems to be, he's not the same build as a Chris Paul type, but he seems to be at least height-wise the same size as Chris Paul. Why are people starting to be a little down on the only kid to ever lead the country in assists and scoring?
Yeah, same size as Chris Paul, same size as Kemba Walker. The size, it's a challenge, but it doesn't mean that you have to check this guy off and be like, oh, he can't be an NBA player. He can't be a star NBA player even. Honestly, I think people are just overthinking it. Trae Young, through circumstances that are, I guess, of his own doing, but not in a bad way, he followed the entire cycle of, modern social media ups and downs in the course of a 5-month season. He went from, I don't want to say unknown, but certainly unheralded compared to other guys who were considered one-and-doners at the beginning of the season. He was not even considered a one-and-done prospect. 2 months into the season, he's the face of college basketball. I remember going to a Warriors game in January and people asking Steph Curry about him. Steph Curry is raving about him. LeBron's raving about him. He's a superstar. And then for the next 2 months, it's like, oh, he's a bust. He didn't perform up to our expectations. Well, it's because the expectations became pretty ridiculous, especially for a guy who was on a team that just did not have talent without Trae Young. Like, you look at how they kind of imploded, that Oklahoma team, during Big 12 play. Well, without Trae Young, they wouldn't have even made the NIT. Like we talk about them barely making the NCAAs. They didn't even have NIT talent without him. So I think we're just overthinking it. Someone gets that overexposed media-wise, and it can be a little bit dangerous. Like, you fall into that Lonzo Ball category where people are sick of hearing your name. I think sometimes there can be an advantage to having a little bit of mystery around you. Frankly, the opposite of Trae Young in this process is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's done next to no media over the past several months. He was a kind of a slow riser during the season and played his best the last month or two of the season. So I still think I'm still a believer in Trae Young. I think he's going to struggle mightily at the beginning of his career as he adds on muscle, as he gets used to the NBA game. I think a year from now, some people will talk about him as a bust, and I don't think he will be. I mean, look, 4 years into Steph Curry's career, what do you think we would have called him? Probably a bust. Turns out he's top 20 NBA player of all time. The ceiling for Trae Young is Steph Curry 2.0. It's an unfair ceiling, and it's unfair for that guy to be compared to this dude, and it could hurt his development because Steph Curry didn't have any shadow to live up to, and Trae Young has this. But the truth is, the reason he has that is because it makes sense. His stats match up. He is the closest thing to a Steph Curry-type player since Steph Curry came out of college.
Reid Forgrave, CBSSports.com, joining us here on Press Row. Last thing I'm going to ask you, who will be the number one pick? Who should be the number one pick tonight in the draft?
Ooh, baby. It's going to be Ayton, right? Like, the Suns have all but said they're going to take Ayton. Maybe they throw a curveball. But it's hard not to pick a guy with that physical profile. I think he may not have the highest ceiling in the draft, but I think he has the highest floor. If I had to pick one guy, and you know that you're going to be judged on this, 3 years from now, if you miss this pick, you're going to get fired. I'd probably pick Luka Doncic, just because he can do so many things. He's so versatile. He's awesome for today's NBA. And he's proven it at a higher level than any of these college players have. So Luka Doncic seems like the combination of really high ceiling, but you also already know what he can be.
He's Reid Forgrave, basketball writer for CBSSports.com. Check him out during their draft coverage, CBSSports.com as well as CBS Sports. Reid, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Thanks.
All right, Reid Forgrave. And look, I mean, it's hard for me to say this. You know what? I'll tell you who I've got number one coming up in just a little bit. But I don't like what is happening to Trae Young, and I don't really understand what's happening to guys like Luka Doncic. I don't understand it. But coming up after the break, we'll close up shop here. I'll give you who I think should be taken number one overall. I'll give you my, I guess, big board, if you want to call it that, for the top five as well. And we'll close up shop here in just a little bit. You're listening to Press Row, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Want to be part of the show? Go to Facebook and search Press Row Podcast Public House Media. Or find us on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. You can also email the program, PressRowPHM@gmail.com.
This is Kim Meyer, the host of Choose to Rise here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Choose to Rise, where we talk about living with positive mindsets, how to increase our confidence, building our faith, and living out our life on purpose. A new show comes out via podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you want to catch the episode live instead, stop by Public House Media around 6:45 Central Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Choose to Rise. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This this is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thank you for tuning into the following broadcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we talk about movie and TV news and reviews, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn a little something about ourselves. If not, then maybe I made you laugh a couple of times. I don't know. New episodes air bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for checking out the totally spectacular following broadcast here on Public House Media.
This is Press Row with Christian Heimall, a Public House Media podcast.
My name is what? My name is my name is Sadie. My name is
Last few minutes here on Press Row. Christian Heimall here with you, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network. Thanks so much for joining us as we do each and every week. Going to have some interesting news about the future of this program coming up here in just a couple minutes, but want to kind of just look back at what we heard from both Jared Greenberg as well as Reid Forgrave. I mean, this is the class of the bigs. It's really impressive to see that. It's really interesting to see the evolution of the game where so many of these bigs can now be this talented from the outside, not only offensively but defensively as well. And it's just really, really exciting to see this. I love it. I'm really excited about it. It's one of the things I think that makes basketball so good. However, I mean, there are just parts of this that really kind of confuse me. I mean, I don't understand what a lot of this stuff is for when you look at the fact that, number one, I mean, I think the game is all cyclical. I really do. In sports, everything is kind of cyclical. You know, eventually in the NFL, we're going to get back to the smash mouth running. You're not going to see these massive, this type of quarterback-friendly game, receiver-friendly game. You're going to see the more smash mouth style, ground and pound type. Same in baseball. I think eventually we'll get back to seeing more stolen bases than you're used to seeing. In the NBA, I think eventually you will see a bunch of dominating big men. Like, okay, if we're going to step outside and dominate there and shoot the three, I'm going to blow you up down low. Because in today's game, it's not about who can. Everybody says who's going to guard Kevin. Kevin Garnett can't guard, or Kevin Durant can't guard anybody. But who's guarding Kevin Durant? Same with these things about Trae Young. Well, Trae Young's too small. He's not going to guard anybody. Who's guarding Trae Young? The kid led the nation in both assists and scoring. That's never been done before. DeAndre Ayton, I know he's still got some things to figure out on the defensive, but who's stopping him? Luka Doncic, by all accounts, is very, very talented on the offensive side. But what about him defensively? Who cares? Who's guarding him? Who's stopping him defensively? So there's still a lot of question marks to go on, but I'll give you guys real quick. I'll give you guys my top 10 picks. I think it's consensus pretty much. DeAndre Ayton is going to go number one. I don't find that to be kind of a surprise at all. Very talented player. Love his ability. However, again, defensively, there are some question marks there, even though I don't think that really matters. Number two, I'm going Marvin Bagley. I love the kid. I really do. I think he's so talented, even though he played at Duke, and you guys know this if you've listened. I can't stand Duke, but very talented, even from outside. 21 points, 11 rebounds, 40% from three. The first-team All-American, ACC Player of the Year. Bagley at 2. I think Luka Doncic does go number 3, even though he probably could be taken higher. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see him go higher or to see him go lower. Mo Bamba's definitely climbing up the charts, and he just strikes me as someone that probably will get picked by Memphis at number 4. Someone to potentially pair there with some of the other impressive bigs that they have, to try to get back to that style that they had there in Memphis for a little bit. I like Mo Bamba a lot. As you heard Reid Forgrave say, he loves him, thinks he could be as high as number 2. But he's incredibly talented. And to hear the fact that Joel Embiid told Reid Forgrave in the winter that the NBA is going to be easier for Mo Bamba, that's just scary. That's a scary thing to think that Joel Embiid, as talented as he is, thinks that the NBA is going to be easier for Mo Bamba. So I have the Texas freshman going 4. to Memphis. Fifth, I think Jaren Jackson. Again, Michigan State was so talented this year, so good that oh my goodness, I don't know how exciting they could have been had it not been for some late season injuries and some issues there at Michigan State. So Jaren Jackson, I think, goes 5 to the Dallas Mavericks. Really, the top 5 could just be completely jumbled. I mean, I could see Jaren Jackson going 2. I could see Luka Doncic going 1. I could see Mo Bamba going 3. There's a lot there. There's a lot of things that are to be decided there. At number 6, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think if a guy like Michael Porter does go at 6, that kind of I think is what's going to end up happening there. I do believe that someone's going to take a chance on this kid, even though he's only played 50 minutes. Nobody wants back injuries that early. Nobody wants that. You heard Jared Greenberg talk about it. It's a difficult thing to figure out. Even though as talented as he was, and probably the number 1 pick a year ago, when you looked at this, it's just I don't see it. I don't see it, and I think too many people are going to be scared of it. To be able to actually go after him that early in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him fall to number 8, number 9, or even outside the top 10. 7, this is where I think it gets a little weird. I know a lot of people have the Bulls taking Wendell Carter Jr. Or a player in that ilk, Mikal Bridges maybe. But this is where I think Trae Young goes. I think the Chicago Bulls like the idea of his passing, his shooting. I think that they want him to be what Jimmy Butler was for them. And I could easily see Trae Young heading up to Chicago and donning that Bulls jersey, which then, in a perfect world, this is also kind of in a perfect world for Cleveland, that leaves Wendell Carter Jr. right there at number 8. And that's who I think they should take. Wendell Carter might be better than Marvin Bagley, but he didn't get as many touches, so he wasn't the focal point. 13.5 points, 9 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 assists, 41% from 3. He would be, I think, a great potential in Cleveland with Kevin Love, with LeBron James, and as Jared Greenberg said, he might be that piece that you can flip for a proven commodity. Wendell Carter Jr. might be the guy that you could flip there. I really do believe that. I think the Knicks at 9 end up with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And then, because they do need that point, I don't think Frank Ntilikina is working out for them as well as they hope for. Wouldn't be surprised at all if you saw Colin Sexton as well. But I do think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is there. And then at 10, it seems very consensus as well that Mikal Bridges could be the missing piece for the 76ers. I don't know if they need a missing piece. I don't know if they have it, but that's my top 10. Those are the top 10 players that I think go in this NBA draft. And a lot of it I really do. For me, Cleveland needs to take Wendell Carter. And if that means you trade up a couple spaces, you just flop picks with, let's say, Orlando thinks they could get Trae Young still at 8, and you trade up to go get Wendell Carter, why not do it? Why not go up there and just flop picks and try to make it happen there if you think Wendell Carter's your guy? Because I do. I think Wendell Carter, where Cleveland is picking, I think that's the best possible spot for them. So, that's pretty much what I think there. So, want to give a big thanks to Jared Greenberg, of course, NBATV. You can catch him on their draft coverage tonight at 7 o'clock, as well as Reid Forgrave, CBSSports.com, joining us for today on the show. Big thank you to all of you guys. As always, find us on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM, Facebook Press Row Podcast by Public House Media. Email the show, pressrowphm@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter as well, at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimall. If you'll notice with today's show, we didn't touch on anything outside of the NBA draft, and that's because we're going to be changing up the programming, the style of the show here coming up starting next week. We're going to be shortening the shows to about 25-30 minutes, get some of the biggest headlines in there. We're still going to be talking. Press Row is all about talking with the experts, the writers, the analysts, the reporters who are covering the biggest topics in sports. So we're still going to have that aspect. Just going to trim it down a little bit. You guys are, of course, still going to be a part of the show. Anytime you have a question or something that you want discussed on the show, by all means, send it to us, and we'll be happy to make you guys a part of our show because you're the reason we're able to keep going. So, but we're going to be shortening the show a little bit on a weekly basis, and then once a month, we're going to have an hour-long special presentation. That's what, for the month of June, the NBA draft was our special, so we hope you guys appreciated it. We hope you guys were excited by it and learned maybe something here today. But we really do appreciate everything that you guys were doing here with us, all the support that you guys have provided us to continue to make us one of the fastest growing sports podcasts in North America. Once again, big thanks to Jared Greenberg of NBATV as well as Reid Forgrave, CBSSports.com, for joining us here on our 2018 NBA Draft Special. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends and family on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com, TuneIn Radio, and, of course, on thphmedia.com. You can head to that website as well, thphmedia.com. Get yourself some awesome Press Row gear. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. They actually feel pretty good, too, wearing my Press Row shirt right now. Until next week, guys, I'm Christian Heimall. Don't forget you can follow me on Twitter at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimmall, and I will see you on Press Row.